The Jagdtiger has to be one of the best tank destroyers at tier 9, if not the best tank destroyer at tier 9, because of the way in which it can deal damage in the current meta of World of Tanks. It works very, very, very well, and if you can use it in the way it's supposed to be used, where you are fairly aggressive and getting up close and personal, you can have damage results that we're going to showcase in today's video. And of course, both replays that we have are kind of the top tier, since I was allowed to actually jump in and play quite a few games in the Jagdtiger, so we've actually got some decent ones since we were grinding towards the Jaegeru. We currently have the Jaegeru, and so that should be coming out in a video coming soon. So as early insider information, you'll be seeing a Jaegeru video at some point in the next week or so. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But more importantly, the Jagdtiger, and I think tier for tier, this vehicle is better than the tier 10 because of the fact that you have the kind of aggressive, more consistent main armament that the Jagdtiger has. Of course, being able to deal a ton of damage whilst also having good accuracy, good aim time, fairly okay armor for a tank destroyer within World of Tanks. Most tank destroyers don't really have that great alpha, combined with the fact that they have okay armor. Granted that the Jagdtiger can be penned by anyone that has any real level of brain function, and so yeah, you can essentially pen this thing through the lower plate. You can also pen the superstructure, you can also pen the upper plate if you have super high penetration rounds. But you're seeing here what the power of getting up close and personal can do in the Jagdtiger, and when people don't have the time to actually aim at you, you can do things like you're seeing here. And of course, unfortunately not managing to pen the second object 780, but we've picked up nearly 2,000 damage right off the bat, and this is something that you can do in this vehicle. And the one thing that I'm a little bit wary of is artillery, because they can do things like that where they hit you over disgusting things, and especially if they're targeting you, you can feel really down in the dumps when you're playing up against them in something like this. Now granted, the Jagdtiger is fairly fast compared to a lot of the premiums and a lot of the tech tree tanks in the game that are tank destroyers, so you've got that one advantage. And you're also fairly well armoured to the point where artillery, even if they do hit you, typically won't pen you unless they get the side, or maybe they actually do hit the engine deck or something at the back of the tank, but it's probably not that likely. And so yeah, you can have some really, really good games playing in this tank, and I think it's super underrated, which is why I want to showcase it on the channel, because there are loads of tanks, there's loads of different things that you can play, but this thing in particular really struck out with me and really performed quite well in my opinion, and that's why it's really focused on the channel. Now we've taken a fairly aggressive approach on Great Wall, or whatever you want to call it. There's two different names I think on PC. There is the same map, but it's called something slightly different, Empire's Border or something like that, but they're the same map. What we have here though is a gameplay where we're kind of going off in, and you can do this in the Jagdtiger, even though maybe you don't want to be pushing up against maybe the tier 10 tank destroyers that you might come up against. Things like the Tyrann, they will pen you automatically, so you have to be a little bit careful with what you're doing. But so far 4,200 damage has been done with 1,300 assistance, so if the game ended right here, it would be a good game, it would not be a bad one. But we're not about to end the replay here. We've certainly got 7 enemy tanks left on the team, so we want to go towards them, we want to finish them off, and then hopefully we can come away with a victory if we don't really want to throw it at this point. One thing that you'll see here is good aim time, good accuracy, and a stunning amount of damage that you can deal. And now we're getting kind of hit, pushed in the back by the Waffle 100, probably one of the worst tier 10 tank destroyers in the game in my opinion, even though it can be fairly solid. But it just doesn't have a whole lot. It's certainly nowhere near as overpowered as it used to be. But the Jagdtiger, you can see here, using the mobility, getting forward, getting up to about 35 kilometers an hour top speed if you are kind of actually getting up to the top speed. From start it might take you a while, but once you are there, it's fairly consistent. And you're seeing here we're coming up against the Foch. You can see a little bit of a shot on the cupola, so we launch one straight in there. Easy win so far. But there's a TNH on the enemy team. There's also the 3 tank destroyers and an artillery piece, all of which we'd love to get some extra damage in. But starting off, let's try and get this TNH out of the game. You're seeing us take a shot from above. Certainly no way of really bouncing that one, but at this point I'm really have to just trying to get as much damage as possible, but we're kind of stuck here. We don't want to push down. I don't want to die by full damage or something like that, so we're going to push towards this tank destroyer who's up here, the T-95. Now, most Tier 9 vehicles would probably struggle to go through the T-95 reliably, but in the Jagdtiger, because I've got the hit point advantage at this point, the Jagdtiger is on a fairly decent amount of hit points, 1400. The T-95 on the enemy team, obviously not on anywhere near that, but you're seeing us launch an APCR round, since we do need premium to reliably go through the T-95, but it's not necessarily imperative that you do. It just makes it easier for penning the cupola like every time, as opposed to maybe bouncing if it kind of slightly goes off center of where you're trying to aim. So yeah, we want to minimize that as much as possible. So 6,300 damage done, 1,400 assists, really starting to move into the better games, and most certainly going to be a mastery badge so far just on the performance, but maybe we'll be able to get some more damage on the artillery pieces that's on the enemy team, who hit us earlier and is the only tank to actually deal any damage to us so far. And of course there is a Tyran sat back there, so push towards the Jagdtiger, which is nice, since you know they got a lot more hit points, so you can farm those up. Maybe we'll get a second shot into him, and we do. And now there's just one Tyran left on the enemy team. We have no idea how many hit points he's on, so it's a little bit risky to kind of push. You know, if he's on more than 3 shots of damage, he may be able to reload, but luckily he isn't. He's only on a 2 shot for us, and so we can push quite far towards him without really any way of basically throwing the game. We don't want to throw the game at this point, so just pushing towards him. Seems to be like he's got behind the house straight ahead of us on just to the right here, and so we're going to push, try and get that all of the damage that's left on him to be able to kind of come away with even more damage in this game. So a little bit of a rush towards the Tyran. He's fired, of course, so that means we're going to be able to get 1 shot. We didn't even need the second shot since we set him on fire, and the ramming may have even taken him out anyway, but overall a victory. So really first great game. 7,700 damage, 2,254 base experience, highlighting that this is a brilliant game. If I don't say so myself, it is a good game, picking up over 9,000 combined damage, and of course 1.4 million silver as well, because of the operation that was going on, and we were running ×5 XP boosters to try and get the Jaeger anyway. But yeah, mastery badge nonetheless, and a brilliant game that I really enjoyed playing. But let's jump into the next one before the game and this video ends. So if you thought the first game was a bit of a fluke, well, I've got a second one here which showcases the power of this tank again. We've also got a third replay that I could showcase where we got 10k combined, but it was more shared in terms of spotting and assistance and actual damage. So I think we picked up about 5,500 damage with about 4,900 assistance or something in that region. I mean, I could always show it in a separate replay and video later on down the line if you'd be interested in seeing that and more from the Jagdtiger, but this one is more of a damage game and trying to pick up opponents on the enemy team as well as getting that damage. But pushing forward, this is Muravanka, probably not the best of maps, I guess, for the Jagdtiger, since you have to expose yourself a little bit more than you might do on some of the other maps. But either way, we're kind of going to go towards the opponents. I was looking about in my settings at the beginning, just double checking if we could maybe look at the team indicators, maybe see if there was any way of changing the HUD and stuff like that. I don't know why I was looking at that, but you know, it was always interesting to have a look. I think I was talking to some of the my mates on online, so I was just I think they asked a question, so I was just answering it. I think we were actually streaming to them as well whilst I was playing, since they weren't actually playing the game at all. But anyway, moving swiftly on with this replay in particular. Well, Muravanka is a fairly weird map for the Jagdtiger, since remember it's quite hilly, and to be able to get any decent level of damage on opponents, you have to quite expose yourself in the right scenarios. Now, most of the time in this game, you're going to find yourself in a pretty annoying kind of area where if you want to get any damage, you have to expose yourself, but if you don't expose yourself and play more passively, then you don't get any damage. So it's a fine line between overexposing and getting damage at the same time. So in this replay, you're seeing us load some premium rounds at the Jagdtiger. Hopefully we can go through the side of him, which we do manage to do, because as soon as the Jagdtiger starts angling a little bit too much, you can pen through the side, especially with these high penetration rounds that we have. And yeah, easy to hit the IS there in the side of the turret. Maybe we can get a third shot off. Obviously trying a very slim shot on the IS, which I'm not surprised didn't hit, but maybe we'll be able to get him with the next one. He's pushing up, so we go for a blind fire. You know, you might as well try it if they're making that decision. But I soon realised that our team are pretty much in one square, so I decided, there's a load of people YOLOing across the field on the enemy team, so why don't I take advantage of the fact that they're out in the open and I have good DPM with fantastic accuracy and chunky amounts of alpha damage to really destroy some of these, get them out of the game. And of course the IKV remains in the same location, so we might as well hit him with that second shot. So yeah, picking up 2,400 damage. You can see the kind of theme going on here is that you have so much alpha and so much like capability with this tank, good accuracy, that you can consistently deal damage to these people, that you soon rack up damage. And it's not really a problem with this tank to find yourself maybe you can't output enough damage to take people out. It's usually about the kind of positioning and where you put the Jagdtiger that makes the difference between whether you have a good game or a bad game, not the actual accuracy or any of the gun statistics. It's fantastic in terms of its handling, as you'd probably expect from a non-turreted tank destroyer. That's what it is, and you've got to get yourself in these sorts of positions. Obviously you haven't moved a ton, and the game is probably helping out with how it's playing with the enemy team kind of out in the open, but you can see if, for example, I was in a different tank which maybe didn't have as much armor, or maybe didn't have as annoying armor, I guess, when you're on a ridgeline and people are trying to shoot up into you, because it angles the armor even better because they've now got to hit you at an incline, which helps. So if you're above people, then you can get quite decent damage, but remember, you don't want to expose that lower plate that the Jagdtiger has, since they will be able to pen easily through that. Now the Indian Panzer on the enemy team, try and get a nice shot into him. Unfortunately he doesn't manage to hit, but the Astron Rex on the enemy team is out in the open, so let's go for a shot. Of course, doesn't actually manage to pen, hits the track, goes low, unfortunately, but it's time to actually start dealing damage and getting rid of these. So we go for the Cupola, which is easy enough hit at this sort of range, and then there's this Indian Panzer who's pushed up, so we go for the blind fire again. Unfortunately didn't realise and didn't wait long enough for the Indian Panzer to actually be there. You can see me getting slightly annoyed that I didn't actually manage to hit, but 5 tanks on the enemy team left. Our team have basically been camping the whole game, and for some reason they can't deal with one bat chat. Only one person has hit him, make that 2, and then we hit him on the move, of course, and only track him because, yeah, light tanks. But either way, we then have the AE Phase 1 in the middle, who don't even know why he's in the middle at this point in the game. Should definitely pushed earlier to help out his team, but we can capitalise on his mistake and go forward and try and get some damage. Now Tiger 2 here stopping to try and aim at the Jagdtiger, which maybe we can get a shot off in, but at this point I'm kind of thinking we should probably get rid of the AE, because if he does actually get himself into a good position, it may be a pain to get rid of him. But either way, the T95 or the T54E2 even, not the T95, I don't know why I was saying that, I was thinking it was the tier 10 medium, but in fact the tier 8 autoloading medium slash heavy tank, you know how it is. It's basically a medium, to be honest, in terms of its armor, but we plow one round into his Cupola, picking up 5,700 damage, and this is how quickly you can rack up damage in a game that seems fairly easy. You know, we haven't had to do anything particularly outrageous. It was mainly about just sticking solid, making sure we don't make any rash decisions, and spot for our team. Now the Jagdtiger on the enemy team does indeed get spotted. I'm thinking, oh, maybe we can go for the superstructure. It's kind of a bit of an annoying shot, but you know, we go for it anyway, since he's going to go undetected. But now we're down to AP rounds, and that is the only thing left in the tank. Go for another blind fire. And unfortunately for us, we are kind of heading down a slope, which is not good for the Jagdtiger's armor angling. So you have that. And of course, the enemy Jagdtiger hits us in the lower plate, penning, of course, and dealing damage. But so far, 6,000 damage, 7,000 combined, and it's time to push towards the last remaining tanks. There is a tank destroyer somewhere at the back who just gets spotted. It's the Jagdtiger 03, who we put a round into on the move pretty much, which was fairly lucky, but nothing too spectacular, and hopefully we can get a shot on him later. But this T-54E2 now looking towards us is thinking, oh, maybe I could get some snacks. Unfortunately for the Jagdtiger, he also thinks the same, and unfortunately for him, he does get taken out. Now, I do try and YOLO this T-54, but it's too late. But either way, 8,000 combined damage once again is a very, very good result in the Jagdtiger, and it definitely showcases how you can not only get good damage but also a decent amount of kills, and also pick up nearly 2,000 base experience again. So that would be nearly, well, it's over 4,000 combined kind of XP within these two games, and a really good one, picking up 950,000 silver as well because of the operation. And I believe we'd pretty much got the Jaeger at this point. So yeah, really did enjoy playing in the Jagdtiger 2 or Jagdtiger, and I highly recommend you guys actually go out and play this vehicle and maybe even revisit it if you've glossed over it, because in update 6.0 or post update 6.0 meta, this is really, really fantastic, and it's just unbelievably good if you can get it in the right matchup and with the right player behind it. Yeah, it's really, really good. Other than that, hopefully that showcased the Jagdtiger, but remember, if you want to check out other vehicles like this, and tech tree vehicles and tanks that are just maybe not necessarily the most meta tanks all of the time, then go and check out the gameplay and tank reviews playlist. And if you're not interested in that, maybe you'd want to check out some of the recent news, which will be on the left hand side of the screen that you can have a look at too. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I hope you join me in the next video coming soon. Goodbye.